everybody, Large here with Dirty Basics Right, coming at you with another one. Now, in continuing with my winter themed builds, I actually had a suggestion or a question from one of my patrons, Rick Spotton. This is all on you. He asked me if I'd ever done any winter water builds. I'm like, no, I haven't actually done any real true water builds since before the channel existed. I thought to myself, you know what, why not? So I want to show you how I went from these cheap clipboards from the Dollar Tree to a bunch of winter ponds. Not hard, it's not complicated, just check it out if you want to. But before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to all my patrons, you included, Rick, because this was your fault. I greatly appreciate your help every month, and I cannot thank you enough. So, alright, let's get to it. Of course, clipboard, pretty simple standard, tear off the sticker, and I need to get rid of the clip itself. Also, I want to give a thanks to Recon at Full Moon Crafting Studios. He suggested the use of the clipboards. I hadn't even thought of it, so I stopped at the Dollar Tree and got one. But yeah, this is just quick, cut it off, easy peasy. Now, I just want to get a rough idea of what patterns I want to go for with these ponds. And I'll use my knife here to just make several passes and try and get as close as I can to the patterns I drew out. You could probably do this with a saw if you got one on hand, but I decided to stick with simple tools on this build, so a knife it is. But do be careful, because if you slip, you could hit your thumb or something. That's not pretty. Now that I got the basic shapes cut out, I want to bevel the edges a little bit. So I'm just going to, again, use my Olfa knife and just kind of cut it at an angle. You can do this with sandpaper completely, but I wanted to try and save some time on sanding. So, just a quick bevel here and boom, done. It's cool, easy peasy. Okay, now that I got all the beveling done, I'm just taking some 60 grit sandpaper and just sanding it a little bit smoother and more even the edges to get that bevel down to where I want it. And I saved a lot of time on sanding by cutting off the edges like I did, or beveling the edges with the knife like I did. I want to seal this board with some Mod Podge for a couple reasons. One, to seal it in so it won't soak up as much paint and other stuff that I'm going to be putting on. And also, if you paint both sides like I want to do, it'll help prevent warping. Unfortunately, when you work with materials like this, if you only paint one side, you run the real risk of it warping and you'll have a wobbly pond. And I'm trying to avoid that. So I'll just paint one side, let it dry, and then flip it over, and then paint the other side. Just like this. See? There are other ways to prevent warping, but this is the quickest and easiest. And will this guarantee no warping? No, it won't. But I didn't feel like going through all the extra effort. Now, I want to put up a little lip around the pond, and I'm just using this wall nail filler, spackle, wall filler, whatever you want to call it. Come in a tube and just squeeze it out like toothpaste or frosting or whatever, though I wouldn't want to try that. I use the tubes for stuff like this because it's just so much simpler and easier to do little lips and borders like this. And I want to smooth it out a little bit, just using a popsicle stick, dip it in water, and then smooth it out to how I want it to look. And honestly, this stuff will dry within, a couple hours maybe. It was a couple hours till I went back to it after I did this step, and it was dry. So I'm going to say a couple hours. Now, I don't want the smooth look that I had, so I still have a bunch of texture paste left, so I'm going to use it and just basically make it look like dirt and mud, because this is a pond after all, so there's a lot of dirt around it. Duh. And I'm also kind of filling in that little lip that I had from the wall spackle. Okay, now that I got that on, it's a little rougher than what I want, so I'm just getting a beater brush, dip it in water, and smoothing it out a little bit. I'm still going to have some texture to it, but yeah. Now, I want to go for like a dark, nasty brown, kind of a cold, so I used the dark brown and dark gray, and I'm just painting this up like dirt as my base coat for the dirt. Typically, I don't add the dark gray, but I want it to have a cold feel to it, if that makes sense. Now I'm using two medium colors, medium brown and medium gray. My medium gray for my mid-tone overbrush. It's pretty simple, quick and easy. Just going for like 85% cover, 75-85% coverage. You know, it's my standard, mid-tone paint job. And now I'm using a light mocha and granite gray, basically a tan and light gray to continue my, stony, dirty, coldish kind of feel to it. A winter paint job. And just doing a heavy dry brush, hitting all the top and leaving the cracks and crevices all alone. Like I said, this isn't a light dry brush, this is a heavy dry brush, so make of that what you will. But again, just using that highlight color to bring up forth all the details and whatnot. Now that that's done, I'm going. If you guys have seen my videos, you know how I paint stuff. I'm hitting it with a dark brown wash just to give it that dingy, dirty look, because that's just what I like. And this is my terrain, so I'm gonna paint how I want. But no, this is just make it kind of nasty looking. And give it that blah look. I said it's just a simple homemade wash. Just slap it all over the dirt areas. Now I'm going back to my highlight color, and I'm going to do a light dry brush going from top down, whatnot, and bring back and make some of those details pop, but still leave that dirty, nasty, dingy look underneath of it. Again, it's a simple process. I've been doing it for years, and it's how I like to do it. And here I'm using my dark blue gray. I'm just giving the actual water area a nice base coat. It may take more than one coat or whatnot, because it is a large flat area and this is cheap crap paint, so, But again, just giving it a nice base coat over the entire thing. Or at least the water area. Now I'm using the same dark blue gray, but I added some black to it, and I watered it down somewhat. And I'm trying to get a blended look to where the depths, the water looks deeper and away from the edge, as you can see, like I did with the one to the left there, or in front of me actually. But I'm just trying to make the middle look deeper. Now I added more black paint to that same mix. And I'm trying to make even further in look even darker, thus deeper. At least that's what I'm telling myself as I'm doing this. Now I'm using Vallejo water texture. Yeah, it's still water. It's a simple acrylic, no two parts, whatnot. You use it straight out of the bottle, and I'm mixing a little bit of burnt sienna ink in it just to give it like the water a dirty, kind of almost toxic look to it. AKA, the player should not drink this water. I'm using a pipette and putting a thin layer of it on. You shouldn't do more than 3 mil with this stuff, or otherwise it'll take forever to dry. And just spread it out. Now I want the water, I mean, these are winter ponds, so I need to do ice, or make some of the water kind of frozen. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a whitewash. It's the same as all my other washes, except I'm using white ink in it. I wanted to make sure that I didn't overdo it, so I went kind of thin or light on how much white ink I put into the wash. This was like, I tried it out on a plastic lid and it was thin. Now, as you can see, it was not quite to where I wanted it, so I'm going to have to do an extra layer here. It's just brushing on the wash to where I want the frozen ice look. It's just doing multiple layers, and it does work out eventually, but again, I wound up doing 5 separate layers to get it to the point where I was happy with how it looked. And of course, as you can see, yet again, I only make you wash 3 layers, so, but again, the more you put on, the more of a white haze you'll get. And eventually it works out great as far as I'm concerned. Now, as you can see, after the multiple layers, it has a decent frozen ice look to it. Of course, now it is still winter pond I'm at. Of course, I'm going to add snow. I mean, come on. I've been staring at different frozen rivers and streams and whatnot just to get an idea of how I should make these look, and they all had some snow on them. So this is just brushing on PVA, dumping my Woodland Scenic Snow Flock on it, kind of pressing it down to get, just to mash it into the glue, using a toothpick to pry this up, and then pat it off. Boom, snow. At least the first step. Of course, there's a bunch of loose stuff in here, so I'm just using a big wide brush, which I use for sweeping up the craft area just to get all the loose stuff off. Of course, now I want to add my Elmer Snow Flock that I got out of a slime making kit at Walmart. But this is just a single layer, and I'm putting on some watered down PVA into the areas I want the finer flock in. I could have done multiple layers with the Woodland Scenic stuff, but I just I have the Elmer stuff, and until it's gone, I'm going to use it. But again, I'm just brushing on some glue, and then I'll sprinkle it on in place, and I'll have my second layer of snow on for the method that I like to use. Typically, I will matte seal with my airbrush to seal in the flock or whatnot, but I didn't want the matte spray to hit the glossy part of the water, so I'm dripping on some isopropyl alcohol and then some watered down PVA onto all the snowed areas to seal it in place. This is also a method you can use for when you put on flocking to seal it in nice and good. Of course, if you see my winter builds, you know I add white pigment powder onto the top, just the areas I want to be a little bit brighter than the others. And it's quite simple. It's a simple white pigment powder made from soft pastel chalk that I scraped into a powder and keep in these little cups. And of course, I'll spray it down with some isopropyl. Of course, I'm using my Green Stuff Whirls Liquid Frost now as the final step. And I'm just painting on anywhere that I want like a frosty pattern. And this also will give you like random streaks and different things. It'll give it an older ice look, think the term I'm looking for, but once the stuff is dry, it'll completely change. As long as, you're doing it on relatively flat, smooth surfaces, it just looks so good as far as I'm concerned. But again, just paint it on, let it dry. And as you can see, I am really happy with how these turned out. Don't really do larger water areas a lot, but again, this is something that was asked of me, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? And I am really happy with them. Hey everybody, if you made it this far, it means you watched the end. As always, I can't thank you enough. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If you want to post some pictures of your winter builds or any builds, come to my Discord. There's a link down below. All this standard YouTube stuff, whatever. But I'm actually happy with how these turned out, and I really honestly wasn't sure about these until the very end. I kept staring at these going, this definitely turned out to be a trust the process build, but I am more than happy with the look of how they turned out. So, trust the process. Again, guys, whether you're doing winter or any seasonal themed terrain or whatever you're building, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain.